welcome to Build for Health, where we break down the fundamentals of strength, longevity, and living a body-forward life. Oh, body-forward. I like that. Today, we are tackling a pair of terms that get used interchangeably, but probably shouldn't be: flexibility and mobility. You've heard them both. You might even think you're working on both, but the truth is they're not the same thing, and the difference matters more than most people realize. Of course, I can't do this by myself. I'm a know-nothing, non-contributing zero. So I have to count on my friend and my trainer, Srdjan, who has spent thousands of hours helping people move better, live stronger, and feel younger in their own bodies. Srdjan, let's do this thing. All right, what do you got for me? We're talking about flexibility and mobility, and they really should be interchangeable, shouldn't they? What am I doing wrong?
It's one of the most misunderstood, I think, topics in fitness, like the difference between flexibility and mobility. Most people think they're kind of the same thing, but they're actually not. And kind of knowing the difference can completely change the way you even train, the way you move, and honestly, the way you age. As you age, those two are very important components in your, how you move throughout the day. And, it's important for everyday life. I mean, walking, bending, reaching, running, lifting, all that stuff that sometimes we don't really think about much.
I want to start with some definitions. When you are in a training capacity, how do you define flexibility and mobility as separate things?
So flexibility is your ability to lengthen a muscle. It's passive. So improving your range of motion. That's kind of what flexibility is. Someone else can stretch you, or you can relax into a stretch, and your muscles simply allow that range. That's flexibility, being able to lean forward and touch your toes, or, reach your arm across your chest. That's all flexibility. It's about how far a muscle can stretch when it's relaxed.
Okay. What mind is racing all of a sudden because you now we're talking about your ability to lengthen a muscle. And I feel like just hearing you say that, I'm realizing how tight I am right now. So what gets in the way of what is normally in the way of flexibility for people?
Well, it's not really in the way. It's just that people don't really pay attention that much to flexibility. They don't really stretch as much as they should. And I'll admit, nobody's perfect, and I'm not perfect. I could probably do a lot better in that department. Tell the truth, which, sometimes I'm like, I know the stretching is a little boring and this and that. And nobody was like, everyone's like, I'll stretch a little bit later, or I'll stretch tomorrow, or, after workout.
Yeah.
So you never really do it. So you lose that flexibility. And if you keep lifting weights, you shorten the muscles, you grow bigger and stronger, but your flexibility starts to limit, and you lose that. So it's, it doesn't matter how big you are or how muscular you are, you can still be very flexible. You got to do it. That's one of the problems with just people don't really think that it's that important.
It seems like it's going to be important, particularly when you're talking about a training capacity, because at some point, right, flexibility is going to limit your performance.
It is. That's why I'm working on it, because the more flexible you are, it's easier. I think I've noticed in the times when I was actually doing stretches more often, stuff like that, and working out at the same time, I was able to pack more muscle, actually, and grow my muscles even more, because I had a bigger range of motion. And that was very important. When lifting weight now, I can do deep squats, or, I can stretch and have that range of motion that I didn't have before. So it plays a big role. It's just people don't really think about it. It's different from mobility, though, but it's still important. There's a lot of people that, you can be flexible but not be mobile. Like, not have a mobility, but you can also have mobility but not be flexible. Like, maybe I would be example of that.
sidestep that because now let's talk about mobility. Because mobility, I don't know if I've ever thought of it as an independent term beyond, I'm mobile. I can walk, I can crawl, I can roll about. But I have a feeling that's a insufficient definition of mobility from your perspective.
Mobility. So mobility is your ability to actively control a joint through that range of motion, right? It's like flexibility equals like available range. Mobility is a usable range. Like you have to be able to move that. So mobility is more like strength, stability kind of things, right? So it helps you move through that range of motion that you have. So you have to have stability and the strength to move that through that range of motion. So that's what mobility is.
Okay.
So it's ability to control the movement through that range.
Right. Okay. So I see mobility now as strength plus flexibility.
Yes. So it's even better. Yeah. If you have plus flexibility, mobility would be that strength plus stability plus flexibility, like all of them together. But still, you can still have the mobility through the range of motion that you do have. So it might not be a huge range of motion. You might be limited because you're not as flexible. So you can have them.
I see.
You have a mobility without flexibility, if that makes sense.
Taking each in turn, why does flexibility matter to us specifically? Why does it matter if I, can't touch my toes easily or have trouble moving my arm across my chest or over my head?
I mean, why flexibility is important is because it reduces risk of muscle strains. It helps muscle move through that full range of motion. It improves the comfort and just the daily movement. So it also helps in recovery and reduces tension. So it is important. Flexibility alone does not give you functional movement or joint stability, where mobility does give you that. So it matters when it helps you reduce that muscle tension when you're too tight, like when you have tight muscles, especially in the hips, chest, hamstrings, like people that spend a lot of time sitting at their desks. They need to stretch more because I get a lot of those clients and they're very tight and I can't put them through some of the exercise in the full range of motions because they don't have that flexibility. They lost that flexibility. And then I have to work on their range of motion, getting that flexibility back before they can actually execute that exercise the right way.
Mobility, then, why mobility matters. It seems like we're going back to episode 1 or my very first time coming in to see you, which was, hey, Srdjan, when I'm 80, I'd like to be able to get off the toilet by myself. That was a mobility request, right? Being able to control my range of motion.
Yeah, it keeps you functional as you age, right? It helps you move efficiently and like pain-free. It supports like lifting technique like squats, deadlift, overhead presses, and stuff like that. So, and also reduces the joint stress and compensations. So also in athletes, it can improve their performance overall. So that's why you work on the mobility by building the strength and the stability around the joint with the control.
We were sort of building on this conversation that we started with core last time, or maybe the time before. We were talking a lot about core, and that was also a conversation around stability, right? Introducing instability to build strength. How do you train for mobility? What is your strategy? Maybe the strategy you're not telling me when we're training, but how do you work with people for mobility?
But that's how we train through the weightlifting. Most of the weightlifting is and then working on your core, you stabilize our muscles through weight training. That's how I train for mobility. And, so there's certain mobility exercises. It doesn't always have to be through weights, right? So you have, hip mobility, shoulder mobility, thoracic or upper back mobility, and ankle and full body mobility. So there's also different types of stretches, like a world's greatest stretch. It's your full body mobility exercise. There's all these different ones that you can, if you Google all those names, you can see what they look like actually. If you have an ankle, you need to get the ankle mobility, the tibialis raises, and knee to wall ankle mobilizations, and heel raises with slow lowering. Those are all the exercises for ankle mobility, for example. And then for your upper back, you have like open book, T-spine rotations, like different exercises that you do for mobility. So if you have like joint stiffness, but not muscle stiffness, then you want to work on that. If you want to squat better or overhead press and all that stuff. So you work on the strength and the stability, but with the control. So it's a little bit different from, like I said, it's very similar. It's close to it. I can see why people would kind of be like, wait, what's the difference again? And so, but they're different. Like, for example, like when you work for flexibility, when you do the workout for the flexibility, it's like those long holds and relaxation, static stretching, slow breathing, there's no strength that's required, and so, and you can do, hamstring stretches, chest and calf, where you hold down for 45 seconds, and it just feels relaxing. And that's more of a exercise for the flexibility.
For mobility folks, we're tossing, you've used the word functional and functional strength a couple of times. Is mobility training the same thing as functional strength training? Is that where you're going, or am I misattributing terms?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of people that kind of like, oh, it's, I'm doing more of a functional strength training. So
yeah,
what functional training do, it's training that improves your ability to perform like a real life movement patterns, safely,
right,
efficiently, with the strength. It helps you get better with squatting, hinging, pushing, pulling, rotating, getting up and down, moving with the control and purpose. Those are like the functional training. And functional training does work on mobility and flexibility, on both things.
Mm-hmm.
So it does focus on the strength and the balance and coordination and power and all that stuff. So functional training is basically mobility plus strength combined into like real movement patterns. You see a lot of older folks, like they want to stay functional. They're like, well, I'm doing more of a functional training. So it does carry to, everyday movement, when you do, that's what the functional training is, what makes the training functional. Being able to pick up the kid or, carry groceries or, just getting off the floor. So it also trains multiple muscles working together, like compound exercises you do. Also improves the quality of that movement as well. With you'll be able to, squat with the control. There's a shoulder stability, there's a core balance, better coordination, and it improves how you move. It's functional.
Where do disciplines like yoga and Pilates and those sorts of things fit? Are we looking, it seems like we're looking at maybe both, but primarily flexibility?
So yeah, I mean, the yoga is good for both, like flexibility, mobility, balance, brain control, that mind-body awareness, the stress reduction. It's both. It's mostly flexibility, because the yoga uses those long hold stretches, so that works on the flexibility. But controlling those movements, it requires some mobility, right? It improves flexibility more depending on the style. There's a different styles of yoga. It can also train mobility and stability as well. Okay. So, but Pilates is a little bit different. I actually have people do Pilates and yoga, and they like to combine both, because the Pilates, it's more good for like a core strength. It's more of a controlled mobility. They also work on your posture and the muscle endurance and stability. Also, there's a little bit more, but it's more for mobility, the Pilates, because they do use some like tension, and you have to kind of use your core and have some strength. They can measure that. So it's a little bit different from yoga, where yoga is more flexible.
When we then transition into weightlifting, it seems like, as great as it is, it builds strength through the range that you have available, right?
Yes.
So if you don't have flexibility, then you're not building the most out of your muscle.
Yeah, for example, because you're going to, like, if you start doing the squats, you're not going to have those deep squats. You're going to be very limited how far down you go because you don't have that flexibility. So even like deadlifts, it's again, hamstring mobility, but you're going to be limited how far down you can go, and you're going to have to, lean a little bit more forward, use your lower back and all that, because you don't have enough flexibility, enough strength and all that stuff. So it's going to limit you on how well you can do that movement, right? I mean, weightlifting, it's good for strength, the muscle mass, bone density, metabolism, joint stability, mobility when it's done correctly. So all that stuff. So it's mostly for mobility, but it will limit you if you don't have that flexibility to actually execute that. So that's why I said, like, even myself, like, I'm like, okay, I know when I started limiting, like, okay, my squats are not as deep. So, okay, I got to work more now on my flexibility. Both of them are very crucial and important. I mean, you should definitely have both and work on both of those.
There is a possibly a trope from the 80s because that's the last time I feel like I've thought about this in any sort of practical sense. But when I was growing up, I was taught always stretch before a workout. I feel like that has been widely debunked, but I don't know when or how. When should I be stretching?
You can stretch before, after, on your days off. This is kind of what I would recommend. The stretching, the kind of stretching that's done before training, you should do only like dynamic stretching, not like static stretching. So, for example, you do leg swings, or you do, arm circles or hip openers, like kind of like shoulder mobility drills, like those kind of stretching. The way I sometimes do it, I kind of mimic the movements that I'm about to do throughout the workout, just to warm up those joints, get the blood flow. After the training, that's for like static stretching. Now that your muscles are warmed, there's the blood flow and tissue responds better because it's, you're not cold anymore. There's a lot more blood flow. So that's good for like increasing flexibility, reducing that tightness after the workout, relaxing the nervous system, improving recovery, and, bringing your heart rate down. So like you do, those hamstring stretches or glute stretches, calf stretches, or, you're doing those chest on the doorway stretches. And those are the static stretching for flexibility, where you hold those stretches now for, 30 seconds, maybe, stuff like that. So those are the kind of stretches that you would do maybe after the workout. Before, a little bit different. You don't try to stretch and pull as much as you want because, there's not a lot of blood flow. You're still it's going to feel a little painful as well when you're not as warm, when there's not that blood flow. If you ever try to stretch and like pull, you're like, pulling like so strong. It's like, I'm like, don't pull that strong. I'm like, those are a little bit more. It's a lot easier to do after the workout. So
it's amusingly counterintuitive though, because I feel like when I'm cold and I do one of the shoulder stretches or leg hip stretches, something like that, I think, I'm so tight, I better just do it harder. Right? Like, I'm going to go beast mode on my stretching, and just because it feels tight, stretching must be the only way to get to the other side of that.
Yeah, and sometimes they'll pull too hard, and I can hear people sometimes come and like, I think I pulled something. I heard something like I was really stretching hard, like I was pushing. I'm like, well, maybe you did pull.
Right.
Actually, so it was like, you shouldn't go that hard right away. Because, even when we start lifting, you warm up first. You go lighter weight, get the body moving. It's the same thing with the stretching. And then, you can stretch on your days off. That's, good for, increasing your long-term flexibility, improving your posture, and, recovering better after the workouts.
Okay, so warm tissue stretch is better. So after the workout, get a stretch in. But we're not working out every day. When do you recommend people? Is there a recommended stretching regimen that you recommend for folks? Should I be stretching every day before bed? Like, what's the rule of thumb?
You can stretch whenever you want. There's no perfect timing, right? There is just a different type of stretches that you would do if you're doing before, after workout, or on your days
Mm-hmm.
off. If you, depending what your goal is. If you want more mobility, then do mobility before your workouts and then stretch later. And then if you want more flexibility, do more static stretching after the workouts or on your rest days. So, you warm up with more dynamic stretching before if you want better performance. And so, the stretching will just help you reduce that tightness and help you with the recovery on the rest days. So stretching after or on those days off, it's really good. It helps you release some of that lactic acid that's built up in your muscles. And then you can also do a lot of, people do a little stretching, but then do foam rolling. There are different types of that to let go of that lactic acid, or those are really painful sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why people don't really like to do them all the time. But they're great. So I'm like, little pain, get through it. You can do it.
Okay.
But
I feel like what I've gotten here from you today is that first of all, flexibility is passive range, mobility is our active controlled range. That's very, very helpful. I probably need more mobility work than I think, which is why I'm here. I want to prioritize my mobility and supplement that with flexibility because my primary interest is aging well. And I know that I'm going to need both of these, but my controlled movement is really important to me. And that, like everything else in this stupid practice, consistency probably beats intensity. Is that fair? If I just get onto a regimen and push a little bit every day, probably okay.
That's important. Like the consistency, you got it. You got to keep doing it. It might not always be perfect, and you don't have to spend like even 10, 15 minutes. Like, but if you just take a little bit of time every day, just put it in your routine, and just make it part of your routine, and just do it. Over time, you'll notice it. You'll notice a big difference in your range of motion. I mean, people who need more flexibility are usually very with the tight muscles, who have those desk jobs sitting all day. And, those who feel stiff very much everywhere. Yeah. People who cannot reach basic range of motion, like touch your toes or overhead reach and stuff like that. So they should do more of those passive stretching, long duration holds, So they are the one that need more flexibility. Now, people who need more mobility, those are who want to lift, more, be stronger. Usually older adults who are losing like joint control, people who have range of motion but no stability, also those with recurring injuries, a lot of athletes, runners, but I think everyone should kind of focus on both, and I feel like everyone could work on both of those. Because nobody's really perfect, but it will definitely help.
You said in one of our very first sessions, you said that you talked about mature muscle, and building muscle when you're young is different from building muscle when you're older, and it takes more work and blah, blah, blah. I was really mad. Is the same thing true of stretching? Like, this is a thing for if you're 25 years old, you're going to have an easier time of it than if you're starting when you're 45?
No, I mean, I've seen 20-year-olds who don't really stretch much, and they're really limited on their range of motion. So literally, you gotta stretch. You gotta do it if you want to keep that flexibility, if you want to keep that range of motion. You can lose it. It doesn't matter if you're in 20s, 30s, or 40s, 50s. I've seen some older folks that are very flexible and can do some things that 20-year-olds can do.
So you're telling me the field is even.
So
I'm
that
very excited.
Muscle is different. Muscle, building muscle, mature muscle, that's different of how fast you can lose that muscle and it stays longer if you have more mature muscle because it's more dense and also. So it's a little bit different when you talk about muscle than when you talk about stretching and having a range of motion. So that one, it's not really. I've seen older folks with a better range of motion and even more strength than some of the younger people. So it's like if you don't stretch, you're going to lose that range of motion. So you got to work on it. I think I had the best range of motion and flexibility when I was, like, for example, doing martial arts. That kind of helped me because we would do a lot of stretching.
Sure.
And that helped me with my lifting as well. I was stronger. I had my range of motion a lot better. As soon as I stopped, I lost it. So it's just consistency. There's no, just because I worked on it and I had it one time, doesn't mean it's always going to be there.
Okay. All right. This is it. If there is one thing that you could tell people as we wrap this up, one mobility practice that you would say, start today, add this thing to your daily practice, what would it be?
Get into the weightlifting. Start getting into the gym, lift some weights, build that strength, working on your stability, and stabilizing your joints and all that stuff. It's very important as you age. You're going to lose it really quick if you don't. Like, everyone, I think, should go to the gym and then do stretching, and it will help. You'll thank me later for actually doing it, getting into the gym and working on yourself.
Thank you, Srdjan, as usual. Fantastic. I've got some stretching to do. I'm putting my shoes on. I'm coming to see you right now.
I know. I feel a little bit now. I'm going to stretch go now, too. I just finished my workout before this podcast. Now I feel like, damn it, I need to go stretch now. Now that I've been talking about this, I'm like, all right.
Stretch of shame. If you've got questions about training or recovery or how to stop chasing quick fixes and start building something that lasts, we want to hear them. Head over to the show notes. Just swipe down in the show notes. There's a link where you can send in your questions for the coach. And don't forget to subscribe and share. This is how we grow stronger together. Thanks for listening to Build for Health. We'll catch you next week.